our sons. And just like a drum, I can hear their hearts beating. I know my God won't let them be defeated. Every child has a dream to belong and be loved. Boys become kings, girls will be queens, wrapped in your majesty. When we love the least of these, then they will be brave and free. Shout your name in victory. When we love the least of these, when we love the least of these. Break our hearts once again. Help us to remember when we were only children hoping for a friend. Won't you look around? These are the lives that the world has forgotten, waiting for doors of our hearts and our homes to open. Boys become kings, girls will be queens, wrapped in your majesty. When we love the least of these, then they will be brave and free. Shout your name in victory. When we love the least of these, when we love the least of these. If not us, who will be like Jesus to the least of these? If not us, tell me who will be like Jesus to the least of these. Boys become kings, girls will be queens, wrapped in your majesty. When we love. Little hands, shoeless feet, lonely eyes looking back at me. Will we leave behind the innocent to grieve? On their own, on the run, when their lives have only begun. These could be our daughters and our sons. And just like a drum, I can hear their hearts beating. I know my God won't let them be defeated. Every child has a dream to belong and be loved. Boys become kings, girls will be queens, wrapped in your majesty. When we love the least of these, then they will be brave and free. Shout your name in victory. When we love the least of these, when we love the least of these. Break our hearts once again. Help us to remember when we were only children hoping for a friend. Won't you look around? These are the lives that the world has forgotten, waiting for doors of our hearts and our homes to open. Boys become kings, girls will be queens, wrapped in your majesty. When we love
And good morning and welcome to the King's Report this Tuesday, April 11th, 2017. 8th year of Chungi, 3rd month, 15th day by the heavenly calendar. I'm your host, Chungi Sean Moon, the second king of Chanyaguk. And let's go first to Tim, the agent elder, for our AccuWeather forecast.
Okay. Well, it's 50 degrees outside.
50 degrees.
It is 50, the big 50 outside right now.
No wonder it's hot in here, so hot in here.
And you know what? You may want to close your ears right now because it is going up to 86 today.
What? My gosh. That is amazing.
That is 30 degrees on the Celsius scale. That is summertime. It's amazing.
That's an outrage.
Yes, there's a high pressure system off the coast, and that is just pumping up warm air from the Gulf of Mexico like crazy. But it's going to be sunny today, but then this evening we should get a lot of clouds and a shower late in the evening. And then tomorrow it's going to cool down, not quite to normal, but it'll at least get back down into the 60s, which is perhaps a little bit saner temperature for this time of year. That's it for the weather.
Okay, thank you, Tim. Well, today is going to be quite a warm day. Everybody can strip off some layers, as you see I have done. And I will have to be heading out at 7 o'clock today for, we're going to be training with the high-level guys in New Jersey. So it's 2.5 hours away. I got to get there by 10. So we will be leaving at 7 o'clock this morning. Let's get to our Rima today, our scripture today. And today we are in Micah, or some people say Micah, 2 and 12. 2 and 12. The subsection is called Israel Restored. Israel Restored. Verse 12. I will surely assemble all of you, O Jacob. I will surely gather the remnant of Israel. I will put them together like sheep of the fold, like a flock in the midst of their pasture. They shall make a loud noise because of so many people. The one who breaks open will come up before them. They will break out, pass through the gate, and go out by it. Their king will pass before them, with the Lord at their head. Amen. Aju. That is the subsection Israel Restored. In the days of Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, kings of Judah, which you saw concerning Samaria and Jerusalem. This is the word of the Lord that came to Micah of Moresheth. A little background here. The powerful Assyrian Empire was expanding and demanding surrender from Israel. When the people rebelled, the Assyrians destroyed the capital of Samaria and took many into exile. Prophet Micah wrote to the people to warn them of God's approaching judgment because they had rejected him and his law. Nonetheless, Micah offers hope to the faithful few who have kept the word of the Lord, assuring them that God will one day restore their nation. There it is. There's a scripture up online, on the TV screen for our internet viewers, our TV viewers. We were talking about this yesterday after our Monday broadcast, and God is gathering together his flock. There is a separation between, in the book of Revelation, also Revelation 24. Guys, pull up Revelation 24. The section about the goats and the sheep. I believe it's Revelation 24. That should be it. There's a goats and the sheep. And on the right side, God has his sheep, and on the left hand, the goats. The sheep are those who truly love and serve and know the shepherd. They know the voice of the shepherd. And the goats, biblically, are the ones who follow the sheep, or amidst the sheep. Amidst the sheep. They're the ones that do not know the shepherd. Or just type in Revelation 24, goats and sheep. Or Revelation, goats and sheep. They are separated from the sheep. Our scripture here today gives us great encouragement. I will gather the remnants of Israel. I will put them together like sheep of the fold, like a flock in the midst of the pasture. They shall make a loud noise because of so many people. The one who breaks open will come before them. They will break out, pass through the gate, and go out. The king will pass before them with the Lord at their head. Every single day, people are waking up. Every single day, people are realizing the heresy of the Hind Mother. Every single day, family frauders are realizing that they were wrong. Even though they bitterly cling, some of them bitterly cling because of monetary issues and or because they've sold themselves out to the organization and not to God. And they try to make justifications and try to dissuade anybody else from leaving as the flocks leave. You can only see an acceleration. As the Hind Mother speaks and speaks, the more she speaks, the more she exposes herself in her complete heresy. Just last week talking about in 6,000 years, she's the only one who knew God as a father. Of course, what she doesn't tell you there is that because she's God the Mother, which she told me. She said she's God. And that and only Jesus as well. And of course, leaving out true Father. So her hatred and her bitterness towards Father is coming out in her own mind, her own perspective. She is quashing that unbelievable desire or her hatred, suppressing it from being released. She feels she's a victim. She feels she's been victimized. She feels she's been treated so badly. She feels that she's protecting Father by not telling people about how hard her life was. And as the organization around her begins to collapse, more and more collapse, now they have to deal with demonstrations in front of the palace that are now just growing and growing. People at the door of the palace. Of course, that's not a real palace. It's not really armed guards and anything like that. And there's a lot of traitors in that organization, a lot of traitors. Who, when the people march and march and march, will run and flee. Will open the gates for them. And this is the common trend of tyrants, who are so deluded in their bowl of delusion and self-worship that they perish before the world, before history, in their own arrogance. Now it's more and more, it's interesting because we had testimony from some of those protesters there. And it was interesting because they were saying that while they're protesting, people in the Chongpyong organization, right, come out and say, "Hey, how are you doing? Oh, long time no see." Coming out, giving them hugs and saying, we know Young Jinam is right. We know he's right, but we just can't say anything because we're working here. They're so pathetic. And I was explaining to the people that it's because Koreans and Asians in general are sociopathic. About 80 to 90% probably are sociopaths. Not psychopaths, but they're willing to follow psychopaths and they're sociopaths because they're trained to be. Now, statistics say that it's about 10% psychopaths, 5 to 10% psychopaths in any given population. And about 30 to 40% are sociopaths. That is, they are willing to be unethical to follow evil and or psychopaths for monetary or personal gains, favors, benefits. But when a society becomes more and more centralized and evil, when it becomes more and more communist in nature, politically Satanist in nature, then the groupthink mentality, the cultist mentality grows. Because number one, we were talking about yesterday, it's connected to the fact that people are not able to be what is that word?
Self-aware?
Determinate. They're not able to have self-determination. They are supposed to constantly follow the orders and mandates of the government and or the archangelic forces. Let's skip this break. Of the archangelic governments, of the centralized power. Now, in a communist and secular, in an atheist state, that is the government. They're also not allowed to be sovereign. They're not allowed to be sovereign with their own land, territory, have a sense of independence from this power structure. They're not allowed to own and have firearms and or ways to defend themselves and fight for their kingdom. So they're in a psychological slave block mentality where they must follow groupthink and they must conform and not rebel against the large power structure. Now, Asia has been under this type of totalitarian rule forever because China has been dominant over Korea for 5,000 plus years. On average, if you average out the numbers of invasions, Korea has been invaded on average every 5 years. They have been occupied. So they are people that have been oppressed. They are people that have been completely ravaged and raped and psychologically broken down, to have no sense of remnant of self-determination. That only happens in the modern world after America comes and frees it and stands with and allows it to be a democracy. But that history of self-determination is very short, very short. It's what? 100, not even 150 years, 60 years old? I mean, your grandpa's probably older than that history of Korea in terms of its own self-determination. And even still, it was not able to do it. Even still, it was still it didn't have its own sense of self. Independence. It still had to always rely on Korea, American, and must till this day. So Asian culture is different from English or American culture. There are some aspects of it that are greater. There are some aspects that are worse, much worse. There are some aspects of American culture which are greater. There are some aspects which are worse. But most Asians in general, of course, everybody knows their groupthink. Most sociologists who've done studies on Asia show in every single experimentation they've done that Asian people are more groupthink. They will follow the herd because they've been trained to be like that. They've been if they didn't do that, for example, in Japan, you would be killed. The samurai would cut your head off. So you had to follow what the federal government had said, what the power structure said. You had to. If you didn't, you'd be dead. And that's been drilled into them over generation after generation after generation. It's become the culture of Asia because they've lived under the hand of totalitarians. They've never had their true, when in Asian history were the people, the normal citizens, able to determine their local laws, were able to own private property and own all the weapons of power that the elites could? Never, almost never, never. When in Asian history is that existing? You always have these tyrants and dictators over them. Always. And of course the state and the propaganda federal governments glorify those past kings which were totalitarians. Who were totalitarians? So there is no cultural history of self-determination. There's no cultural history other than in the last 60 years of standing up against the tyrants, of being separate. It's always trained people, especially in Asia, to become sociopaths, to follow, to conform to what the establishment tells them to do. Conformity is absolutely huge in Asia. Anybody who lives in Asia or is from an Asian family generally knows. And of course, this is the big problem when Asians come to the West and raise their kids in the West. They screw up their children because they try to raise their children as if they're in Asia, focusing on conformity, where in America, the focus is on self-determination and independence and self-independence. So it's completely different. One is totalitarian, one is sovereignty-based. Completely clash of cultures, which is the reason why so many Asian parents ostracize and alienate their children, and then by the second generation, the kids are completely separate from their parents, or they think their parents are nuts. Because the culture is so radically different. Now, it's interesting because just the other day, my wife was speaking to one of our children, and in order to convince him of her argument, she wrote out a PowerPoint presentation, and she presented that PowerPoint presentation to him to convince him. She didn't just say, "Do it, I'm your mother." Okay? And that is very important. Understand that people have free will. That you can't drill them like a totalitarian. You can't force them to do it. You must explain. And so and I tell my kids, you guys have it easier because Daddy explains to you when I make you do something. And of course they get spoiled and they always want an explanation. That spoils them. In some respects it spoils them. And it's easier just to be, why don't we just do it like Korean culture do? Daddy says do it and you do it, must just do it. Or mommy says do it, you must do it. Because I'm your appa, your mama. That's easier. But parents who try to do that without the social context of conformity that you have in Asia find terrible results, and I've seen it. All you have is, because from the child's perspective, it's a total oppression. So, anyways, the point is that we saw that people, when the demonstrators were out there in Chungpyeong, we had people in the Chungpyeong organization come out, greet them, give them like water and like say, "Oh, stay warm." Not give them water, but say, "How are you doing?" You know, things like that. And "Oh, we know, Young Lim is right. We did your working." Oh, you know, in the common sociopathic Korean and Japanese fashion. And if you speak to the majority of Korean members, if they're in honest conversations, they'll actually admit that they know the Han Mother is wrong, and they know that I'm right, that the second king is right. But again, conformity is there. And you have now larger and larger waves of people waking up, standing up, submitting their resignation from the family fraud, saying that it has become heretical, which it has. And that realization of that reality is becoming more and more apparent. Harder to defend, especially for all the fraudulent apologists in the family fraud who receive salaries and are prostitutes. So you have that now beta wave of that's coming in. But of course, they want to know that, whether or not when they come back in that they maintain their status and all this thing. And of course they haven't. They've fallen. They've strayed from father's lineage. They've by their own free will, chosen to leave the lineage of God and to follow the Han Mother and her heresy and become part of the fallen lineage. So they are fallen people. Who is it that said, when a patriot is in greatest need, he is a scarce commodity, a scarce resource, scarce person. But when his cause is victorious, everybody wants to be a patriot. You see, there are the true sheep that God divided in the beginning. Because yes, must divides good and evil. The true brothers and sisters of sanctuary who were under Father's authority when it was the hardest, they are the sheep. They are the ones who will be the founding fathers and mothers of Chaniguk. Not the beta waves that come in after them. Because there's a difference. Yes, there's a way for people who were cowardly, to return back to Father's authority. There is a way. But they are not the patriots who stood up and fought on the front line. Just like in the American Revolution, there were many who stayed and received the benefits of the founders fighting for the revolution. But they were not the patriots. They were the ones who received the benefits of the fighting of the patriots. The patriots are just a couple hundred people. At least that led the revolution. Their names are etched on the document of the Declaration of Independence, which they signed and risked their lives to do, to rebel against the British crown. You see, not everybody gets to be a patriot who is remembered in history. Although they would like to be, they miss their chance. They can, of course, receive the benefits and blessing of Chaniguk and Chaniguk culture. They're between a rock and a hard place because that family fraud organization is becoming completely liberal, progressive, lunatic left. Their top leadership is completely leftist. You ask that whole new, quote, second-gen group, which they're not really second-gen, fallen. They've left Father, they betrayed Father. They don't even have faith in Father. They have faith in the organization and power. You ask any of them, are they against gays or gay marriage? 90+%. You will see. I have no problem with it. No problem. And they will skew and twist Father and say, oh, it's all about love, it's all about love. They're there for love, etc., etc., etc. Just like the left does it. To allow for the blessing to be given to gays. I mean, it's just so pathetic. It's so pathetic. It's so fraudulently pathetic. It's so fraudulently wrong. They can't stand up to anything that is evil. They are just sluts in the wind who will be in hell and separate from others and receive tremendous punishment when they die in the spirit realm. And that is, of course, sad, but it is what they have chosen to do because they have sold themselves, prostituted themselves to power and money, which, of course, is running dry. Which, of course, in the Japanese church, why they had to let go of, 120 ministers? 25% of the minister class. Which, of course, those ministers will, one by one, come under Father's authority. And one by one, bring all the brothers and sisters back. And as all the world church knows, they cannot exploit Japanese members anymore, although they're trying to squeeze them to death. But as more and more of them find liberation and freedom, come under Father's authority as repentant sinners, forgiven of their sins, return to Father's authority. Of course, as first gen, but still, they return to Father's authority. The more pathetic and the more indolent and pitiful the family fraud, at least in the West, is such a pathetic little organization. Constantly groveling and waiting for the money to drop from Japan, which of course is drying up. So sad. But it is the destiny of fraudulent thieves to find their own destruction. Because we know, of course, on the inside too, they're infighting like crazy. Because as the organization collapsed, they're in-blaming each other, infighting each other, the different power blocks inside the family fraud, and of course, betraying the Han mother, stabbing her in the back. That is the fate of dishonor and temporary gain. Political sluts. And there is the patriots who stood with Father's authority, stood with the second king and three kingships that Father himself established as his kingship. And now the many flocks and the flocks that are coming back, of course, they are not the ones, they are not the same as the ones who stood in the fire. God mocked, persecuted, scorned, all their friends left them. They're not the same. But they're saved, they become saved. We love them as our brothers and sisters. Father accepts them, but they come back, of course, as fallen people and are restored. But again, not the same as those who stood from the beginning. And as Arima talks about Israel being restored, breaking through the gate, passing through the gate and going out, in the midst of all the persecution and attack of the Assyrians, God promises them that the king will pass before them, the Lord at their head. God will be at their head. God sees you, sanctuary. The brave men and women who are not about political correctness, who are not about prostituting themselves to the hierarchy. They were real men and women who loved God and who loved the Messiah who had returned. You, my friends, not because I want you to self-worship yourself and aggrandize yourself, no, but you are the historical patriots that will forever be remembered. Not for your own glory, not for your own glory. Don't get into your head. Don't get inside your head. But you have proven yourself in the final hour. And you have become a hero for your bloodline and your tribe. And to God be the glory, because he has given you faith, he's given you strength and courage to stand up against all the hate and all the scorn, and all the mockery, and all losing all your friends, and people ostracizing you, all that. But he gave you faith, courage, and love. You, my friends, are part of the founding of Chanilgu. You were the last, but now you are the first. And you stand with God's direct kingships, three kingships. And you stand with the King passing before you and the Lord at our head. We'll be right back after this short break.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, It's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Carr Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit carr.com today. Carr Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Carr Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Carr Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Carr Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Carr Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit carr.com today.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
And we are back. Welcome back to the King's Report. I'm your host, Youngja Sean Moon, the second king of Cheongguk. Let's go now, Tim, for a report on East Asia. Tim.
Okay. Before we go to East Asia, let's just remind ourselves that Syria is still there. And Rex Tillerson is in Moscow tomorrow, where I'm sure he will have a very difficult meeting with his counterpart. I think Putin has already said that he will refuse to receive a courtesy call from the Secretary of State, which is unusual and which indicates how angry the Russians are or how upset they are. But that's tomorrow, and we'll talk about that later in the week. Meanwhile, things are getting very, very dicey on the Korean Peninsula. The report today is that China has moved 150,000 troops and medical supplies to its border with North Korea. American media is quoting this from a South Korean paper, but then when I go into that South Korean paper, they are actually quoting a Japanese paper. When I go to the Japanese paper, I can't find that particular article, but it may well be true because China has done this in the past, and the usual purpose is to prevent refugees from coming over the border if the North Korean society collapses. That's something that the Chinese want to avoid, to have millions of people coming across the Yalu and Tumen rivers there. Now, the other thing, of course, is that the USS Carl Vinson, which was on its way to Australia, I think it was actually stopping off for shore leave in Singapore when the order came for it to turn around and go back to the Korean Peninsula.
See the image of the Yalu River.
And so that is another thing, and that has
Image of the Yalu River.
that has upset North Korea. North Korea, you know, is a master at brinksmanship. And this is how they have gotten concessions out of the West, time and time and again. In 1994, for example, they got $1.3 billion out of the Clinton administration by playing exactly this kind of brinksmanship. And so certainly one thing that they are doing is that they are testing Donald Trump. But this very well could lead to actual war. Because Donald Trump, it looks like, he's what is he? He's the gambling king, right? So he knows how to play a hand of poker, and I don't know if he's going to allow the North Koreans to bluff him.
Well, let's see the actual rivers. Let's see how wide it is.
It's very wide. You can put in a search for something like.
There it is. There's a town.
Okay, yeah, that's
There it is.
on the Korean
That's
side.
not
It's
that wide.
depends on where. At the mouth, it's wide, but yeah, you can walk across it in some places. That's true.
Look at that. It's not
Yeah.
that wide.
Yeah.
Some places it's wider.
Yeah, some near the mouth, of course, is wider and deep, but yes, upriver it's not so wide, especially during a dry season. Now, South Korean paper is reporting that there is a the last 4 or 5 days, there's been a rumor going around in South Korean social media saying that the United States is going to attack North Korea on April 27th. And this is Chosun-Ilbo, one of the largest papers and generally considered a very credible paper. And so they actually took that rumor seriously enough that they did a whole article on why that's not true. They're trying to tamp down those fears and keep the people from panicking. And I just want to go through some of these reasons that they give to let you decide for yourselves whether or not they are reasonable. One part of the rumor says that foreign companies in Korea are pulling out. And so the Chosun-Ilbo looked into this and said that yes, during the first quarter, that's between January and March, first 3 months of this year, U.S. investment in Korea declined by 33.5%. But they said that's true, but the financial sources say that this is not because of the security situation, but because of the U.S. Interest rates went up, and so because of the difference in interest rates now, it's more profitable, or it's less profitable for companies in Korea. So that's why they're pulling out.
I don't know if I don't believe that one.
Well, that's their explanation.
saying.
So decide for yourselves. And the
Investors
second.
see how dangerous that scenario is becoming. Nobody's going to be investing money there now.
But they do find that U.S. investment has gone down by 33.5% during the first quarter.
Not surprising.
The second thing they say is that, they say that, the United States is not going to attack North Korea because there are more than 200,000 Americans living within range of North Korea's long-range artillery. And there are, if you include the military personnel and civilians, I'm sure that there are more than 200,000 Americans. And certainly if there is retaliation from North Korea, if those long-range artillery start firing into Seoul, I'm sure that, Seoul is a very cosmopolitan city. So there will be tens of thousands, perhaps hundreds of thousands of people killed, perhaps more, maybe millions, but probably in hundreds of thousands. And among those, there will be many nationalities, and there will be Americans among those killed. That's undeniable. And there may be thousands of Americans killed. 3,000 people were killed from many countries were killed on 9/11. And it may be that kind of a situation again, where maybe thousands of Americans will be killed there. And certainly President Trump is aware of this, and that I'm sure that it will go into his decision-making process and will make his decision more difficult. But does that mean then he will allow North Korea to develop an intercontinental ballistic missile that will potentially hit the United States and strike in a large city in America and kill many more people? I think the Koreans think that the 200,000 Americans there are their guarantee that, or at least this newspaper thinks, and I think many other Koreans too, think that those people, Americans, they're a guarantee, they're kind of their hostage to protect them, that this is a human shield that they have, these 200,000 Americans are their human shield to protect them from any possibility that the United States will attack North Korea. That is part of their wishful thinking, I think. If things come down to it, then I think President Trump, if he feels he has no choice, then...
Now, the major bases in Korea, however, have been moving south.
They have been moving
last
south, but there's
couple
still, a lot of major bases have been moving south, but still there is the Yongsan base is still there, and that is still north of the Han River.
Yeah.
And there's still, I think, as far as I'm aware, there's still a lot of dependent families, and there's still a lot of military housing there. And I'm sure that North Korea has trained many of its long-range artillery on that particular base because it's a pretty large target.
It's right there in Seoul.
Yeah, it's right in the middle of Seoul. It's
right there.
It's a large target. And there are other bases, known bases. Their locations are well known. You just have to drive around and see where they are. There's
You can Google them.
yeah, you can even Google them. Yes. So there is that, and there will be situations like that. And I know the U.S. Embassy in Korea in these kinds of situations. I was living there when we got when was it? These coming to the brink situations happened again and again, and so I can't remember exactly when it was, but I remember being contacted by the U.S. Embassy at one point, telling me to stay in contact. And certainly I would encourage any American in Korea now to register with the U.S. Embassy. You can go to American Services section of the U.S. Embassy, and you can register so that you can get a text. I'm not sure what the text will say, like maybe go, 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 I don't know. Run, run, run. I don't know.
Go, 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 baby, run!
But you know,
Lord have mercy.
when the bombs start falling, I'm afraid, you know, I lived in Korea for 20 years, and I was always aware that when the bombs started falling, most likely I wouldn't be able to get out. I was aware
But
of
you
that.
lived under the protection of the Lord of Second Advent.
Yes.
There was a spirit of protection that was covering Korea. Now there's a curse.
Yes.
The spiritual atmosphere has changed, and we know the spirit world is real.
Yes.
Go ahead, Dave.
Okay. Got a message from our daughter who's in Korea last night. Says, well, as long as I stay out of Seoul, I'll be all right, right? right. Unfortunately, it's the size of New Jersey, Korea is. It's not a lot of place to run. Not so sure.
Goodness.
Not so sure. But yeah, I think it's probably. No, and I've known U.S. officers who say they will not let their families live in Seoul, even though they're stationed in Korea. They will not. And this was true before. You know, they were not aware of the protection of the Lord's Second Advent, but they did not allow their families to live in Seoul, and so today is probably not a good time to.
I mean, the Korean
be in
people
Seoul.
just don't realize how much protection they had spiritually.
Yeah.
They just don't get it. Go ahead. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
it's true. Those artillery pieces have been there for a long time, and we just have to do it. Yeah. So right now, you know, another theory that's out. The other theory is that, of course, that because Xi Jinping was recently here, now there's a kind of a conspiracy theory going around that Xi Jinping has agreed with Donald Trump to allow the United States to strike North Korea, but that doesn't seem too likely. But we'll have to see. And then another thing is that there's another theory going around South Korea now is that there's work going on to get Kim Jong-un to get him out of the country and to have him seek political asylum in another country. But our military sources say that this is not very realistic. And even if it were true, whoever replaced Kim Jong-un probably would be doing pretty much the same thing as he is.
Yeah.
Because this pattern of brinksmanship did not start with Kim Jong-un. It is one of the hallmarks of North Korean diplomacy and military strategy for many decades. As I said, in 1994 it happened, and they got $1.3 billion. It was a pretty good payout, quite a good payout. Another theory going around is that U.S. is bringing in war materials, and the Chosun Ilbo article says that yes, that's true, but
Yes, it's true.
but they say this is in connection with the joint military exercises and has nothing to do with any strike that the U.S. is planning against North Korea. So that's the rosy picture. We'll have to see what happens, because everything, certainly now between the end of April would seem to be an extremely difficult, and going on actually into the first week of May until May 9th, I would say,
Which is the election.
which is the presidential election. And now actually the far left candidate, who was almost assumed was going to win, seems to be declining now, and a less bad candidate, not the good one, but the less bad candidate seems to be rising up. So these elections also are very volatile, and we'll have to wait and see what happens there as well, and what the effect that will be on all U.S. policy.
Well, thank you, Tim, for that breakdown of what is happening in Korea. We'll be right back after this short break. Stay with us.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology, it's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood, the history of the 1911, and the Tommy gun to the best in compact concealed carry, Carr Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Carr Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit carr.com today.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
And we are back. Welcome back to the King's Report this Tuesday, April 11th, 2017. I'm your host, Hyungjin Sean Moon, the second king of Cheongguk. Getting back to some of the top news today. The Telegraph reports Donald Trump's action in Syria proves he is not in league with Putin, says his son Eric Trump. Donald Trump's decision to launch a cruise missile attack on Syria proved he's not in league with Russia and will not be pushed around by Vladimir Putin, the U.S. president's son, told the Daily Telegraph. Eric Trump said his father was not intimidated by President Putin's talk of war, and there would be no one harder than President Trump if they cross us. He also confirmed that President Trump's decision to bomb Syrian air base to punish President Bashar al-Assad for a nerve gas attack last week was influenced by the reaction of his sister Ivanka, who said she was heartbroken and outraged by the atrocity. So this is confirming the fact that there is a Democratic coup within the White House, of which part of Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump are a part of. And that is what's coming out of the intel in the White House. That there is a coup, that they're leaning heavily left, that they're trying to ally and pressure the president and or give him nudges in that direction towards the establishment. Where Steve Bannon is a super, quote, nationalist in the sense that he wants us to be disengaged from foreign wars. And his power seems to be fading. And he is being more and more isolated, and more the Republican establishment, the Rhino establishment, the neocon, the Trotskyites, the communists, who are just simply wearing different colors on the Republican ticket, are now more and more able to surround Trump. Even Alex Jones of InfoWars, who was trying to defend Trump with his attack on Syria just a few days before, trying to say maybe there's, they were talking with the Russians before, maybe this was all planned, maybe this is a way that Trump can save face, etc. This is a way maybe that they're just taking out a base that was already agreed upon to be taken out 4 years ago, etc., etc., etc. Even now, Jones is starting to pull back from that kind of statement, and his most recent statements are saying it seems like he's being more and more infiltrated and being surrounded by the neocons, being compromised. That he's done great things. He was doing so many great things in the first 100 days, the first 70 days. He was smashing the New World Order, smashing the world governance desires, smashing, putting huge gaping holes in them, destroying, pulling the U.S. out of TPP, world trade, which is essentially rigged trade that the super elite can decide upon, the Bilderberg Group, etc. Pulling America out of those things, bringing corporations back into the U.S., bringing back thousands and hundreds of thousands of jobs. Entrepreneurship, confidence never been as high. Stock market up $3 trillion, etc. I mean, just massive destruction to the world governance folks, the world governance demons. The problem is the Rhino Republicans and their strategy has been, since they couldn't defeat him, even though they publicly tried to steal it from him, and that was Reince Priebus, during the Republican nomination process, they were publicly saying your vote doesn't matter. They're publicly saying to the Republican people that your vote does not matter. That they're a private organization, they will choose their nominee. Even for 30 years, they've been lying to the public saying that their votes matter. And why even get the people to start voting for the nominee if they're the ones that are saying, well, we're really the ones who choose it. You see, they got exposed this time. They got totally exposed. And then Trump brings in Reince Priebus, who was like a little gremlin who promised that he would show him around the caverns of Washington and all the secret little areas and connect with the right people, etc., to fight this battle. But what happened? Now you see those Republican, like General McMaster, and those neocons like McMaster and Reince Priebus, and influencing Tillerson to sway towards the neocon faction. For putting pressure on General Mattis to be more like a neocon. Reince Priebus being right up there in the White House in every staff meeting trying to take over the atmosphere. And this was the great danger that Trump was at. He came in as an outsider. He came in as a non-establishment person. But now as he's gotten into the establishment and he's stayed in the White House, which is a problem. We were saying spiritually, he must stay in the Gold House. That he must get out of that Washington atmosphere. Because it is not a normal atmosphere. It looks like normal place, a normal place with normal houses. No. It has a demonic atmosphere. And in the demonic atmosphere, one doesn't know that they are transforming, especially when one is at the center of it. That vortex of evil, that cloud and typhoon of wickedness and tyranny and force. And even Alex Jones had to come out in a video saying, if Trump turns and he becomes a rhino and he starts, going into wars and bringing us into end of wars and supporting John McCain, because John McCain now is applauding him, that Alex Jones will turn on him, and he doesn't care whether or not the president calls him or not. He will turn on him and attack him for everything he's got. So you see even Alex Jones and InfoWars having to pull back on their statements about Trump, in which they were trying to, explain from their point of view that maybe there's a different layer to this attack in Syria. This is a super crisis now, folks. This is something we always warned the president of, that he must understand the nature of the beast. He must not just ride on the beast and think he can control it. He must slowly begin to destroy it. Because if he doesn't, he will become part of it. And it's not about just throwing the president on the bus and saying, now he's just part of their establishment and now it's over. No, it's about trying to awaken the conscience he has within him, even though he's surrounded, and trying to, by continuing to expose the contacts around him, even his daughter, who is giving him tremendous pressure to become a neocon, because basically she's a liberal leftist posing as a fake conservative. She's part of the New York City establishment. She says that she disagrees with him on many issues, or some issues. And of course, Eric here, Trump, very nice guy, very good guy, but again, trying to defend his father. And confirming that Trump's decision to bomb Syrian air base to punish Assad for the nerve gas was influenced by the reaction of his sister, who was heartbroken and outraged by the atrocity. This is a serious situation, folks, because we went into Syria, and now by bombing them, all the evil demons of Washington are applauding Trump. That's a bad sign. All the warmongers are saying, yes, wonderful. Hillary Clinton, Obama, top aides, CNN, praising him. John McCain. All the warmongers who want to push us into perpetual war and we're trying to implode us into World War III are applauding Trump. They're saying, great job. He showed strength and confidence. He showed, etc. And now with mounting rhetoric, with even Putin saying that we will attack, and there was a general on Russian TV that was saying we must strike back at America. Trump saying that, Putin saying that he will attack any force, including American force, and that they will not go and attack these bases with impunity. This is an escalation. Trump was saying that he wants to have good relations with Putin when he was on the ticket. That's why everybody was voting for him, because we don't want a freaking war with Russia. That's World War III. They're thermonuclear power. They're huge. Do you understand that? We don't want thermonuclear war. But the Washington establishment is so hell-bent on plummeting us and plunging us into the death throes of war for their own profit and political maintenance of their jurisdiction and power, that now they are surrounding Trump. The demons are surrounding him, casting their spells upon him, making him trying to make him wicked as them and make them say, join us, join us. You have to show strength against Assad, even though there's no proof that he did it. You have to do strength against Assad. He used chemical sarin gas, even though sarin gas cannot be handled with people with little latex rubber gloves, which are the pictures. And yes, there's probably children that have died in those attacks. But all the evidence shows, I mean, you got to be brain dead to see that that is a false flag. That is not real sarin gas. I mean, one touch of sarin gas and you're dead. You have to handle it in a hazmat suit. And you have this, and this benefit Assad because he had ISIS literally pushed on the border of Iraq. I mean, he had ISIS way down on the border of Iraq. It was like he was wiping them out, pushing them back out of Syria, with of course Russian support. And Trump said he made a campaign promise that he wanted to go after ISIS, even if you have to help Russia to do it. And that was a good plan to team up with Russia to destroy ISIS, which is the threat. But then Assad, and they're right about to push ISIS out of it. Not that saying Assad is perfect or he's good. He's still a bad guy, but he's better than ISIS. At least he's Western. He's more Western. And they almost got ISIS pushed back out of Syria into Iraq. And what happens now? We bomb the people who are fighting ISIS. I mean, give me a break. It doesn't. Why would Syria do that? Why would Syria? They're defeating ISIS. They're smashing them. They're pushing them out of their country. And then all of a sudden, why would they start bombing their own citizens to bring international outrage on them so everybody turns on them and destroys them? Why would they do that? I mean, give me a break. There's no motive for it. Which is why Ron Paul in his Liberty Report even comes out and saying there's zero motive. But these warmongers are promising, the warmongers like McCain, who went and met the ISIS demons and said they're good people. This is a warmonger, folks. People like them we're supposed to trust, who got us into war after war, Iraq, Libya, Syria, just a war after war after war. Their whole job in the Senate is just continue to push for wars. While our children die and their children get to sit in super elite bunkers. This is a tremendous danger, folks. Tremendous. You'd have no idea how much danger we are in. We must wake the president up. He must not turn from the group and the power bloc in America, the silent majority that vote him into power. If he does, he will be hated more than Obama. Because we voted for him. Because he promised, and he was fulfilling all those promises in the first 70 days. He was fulfilling them all. But of course, if you plummet us into war with John McCain and Obama and Hillary Clinton, which they wanted to do, and go to war with Russia just to prove them wrong that they are not working with Russia, give me a break. These are lives. This is a war you're starting. It's not about your ego. The mainstream media attacking you, saying that you work with Russia, is nobody believes it. None of the base that supported you believes that. It's not even an issue. But now you going to war and destroying the people who are fighting ISIS. If the purpose of that is to prove to the liberals that you're not working with Vladimir Putin, or you're not working with Russia, or that you're not part of the Russia against Canada, it's ridiculous if that's the reason. Nobody believes that stupid story by the lunatic left anyways, other than they're cultists, they're hardcore cultists. People who watch CNN 24 hours a day and believe that's actual real news. I mean, we're winning the argument, we're winning the information warfare, we're winning the media warfare, we're winning that. More and more people in the West, Europe, all across the world we're agreeing that the liberal lunatics are just making that up because they're butthurt about losing. And then it's the Dead Babies Act, Dead Babies Act, which we saw yesterday, which is the way they tried to get us into war with Obama 4 years ago with Syria. Because that borders Iraq. Let's get a map of that, Syria and Iraq. Unbelievable, folks. We are in tremendous danger. We must be praying for our president. We must do our utmost to get it to the president that he must not betray his voter base. Because it is that silent majority he works for. Not for the interest groups in Washington. Not for the warmongers in Washington. He works for the silent majority who put their trust in him. And if he turns and becomes a neocon and a rhino and a slut of the state, that silent majority will turn on him. And he will be remembered as the biggest traitor as a president in American history. Super, super serious time. There it is. Syria bordering Iraq. They were pushing them down, all the way down, back into Iraq. ISIS, of course, has taken over Iraq. They were pushing them back into Iraq, and now, because of this Syrian chemical attack, which is probably done by ISIS, and then they're staging the same as Assad, Trump, no, the U.S. intelligence is not that stupid. They know what's going on. But if he believes that he's going to take over the U.S. empire, he's the one who said he didn't want to be the world president. He's the one who said he's going to focus on America. Focus on America, Trump. Stop trying to maintain this global hegemony and imperialism of America that we've had under the neocons and Bush and McCain and these nutbags. Father called them king of Satan's world. Focus on making America successful. Stop the wars. Bring peace. Be the president of peace, not the wars. Make peace with great prosperity so that all the nations in the world can see America and say, we want to do that. We want to follow in that sovereignty basis and that sovereignty platform. We want to elect somebody who's sovereignty based. Don't go on this path of neocon war, Trotskyite war, which only enriches the political elite class, and the Bilderberg and Davos group can use it to divide and conquer and to be able to take over the countries after they've ravaged each other, lend money to them, and then ravage them politically again. We are praying for you, Donald Trump. Donald John Trump, we are praying for you. Separate yourself from Satan. We rebuke the spirit of Satan that is trying to destroy you. We rebuke the spirit of the demon class that is trying to destroy you. We rebuke those spirits. We rebuke those devils. Separate from them, Donald John Trump. Do your job. Don't follow those neocons. Get us out of that war. Destroy ISIS, not them. Such an unbelievable time, folks. Unbelievable time. We'll be right back after this short break, covering more of this with our guest on second hour, Dr. Alfred Aram, who is in the Middle East. We'll get his breakdown right after this. Don't go away. Whew.
Little hands, shoeless feet, lonely eyes looking back at me. Will we leave behind the innocent to grieve? On their own, on the run, when their lives have only begun. These could be our daughters and our sons. And just like a drum, I can hear their hearts beating. I know my God won't let them be defeated. Every child has a dream to belong and be loved. Boys become kings, girls will be queens, wrapped in your majesty. When we love the least of these, then they will be brave and free. Shout your name in victory. When we love the least of these, when we love the least of these. Break our hearts once again. Help us to remember when we were only children hoping for a friend. Won't you look around? These are the lives that the world has forgotten, waiting for doors of our hearts and our homes to open. Boys become kings, girls will be queens, wrapped in your majesty. When we love the least of these, then they will be brave and free. Shout your name in victory. When we love the least of these, when we love the least of these. If not us, who will be like Jesus to the least of these? If not us, tell me who will be like Jesus to the least of these. Boys become kings, girls will be queens.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
And we are back. Welcome back to the King's Report. I'm your host, Hyungjae Sean Moon, the second king of Cheongguk. We're now welcoming Dr. Alfred Karam from Lebanon on the second hour. We're working through a lot of technical issues, but I do believe we have Dr. Karam. Are you there with us, Alfred?
Yes,
He is
indeed.
here.
He is here with us.
And that is going through the live feed. Yes.
Going through the live feed, yes.
Okay, so I don't know if you have heard.
I don't know if you have
what we've been
heard,
discussing on the first hour.
what we've been discussing
but
on
we
the
were
first
discussing
hour,
President
but we were
Trump's
discussing
and the
President
U.S.'s
Trump's
strikes
and the
upon
U.S.'s
Syria.
strikes upon
59
Syria.
Tomahawk missiles been
59 Tomahawk
unleashed
missiles been
on
unleashed
Syrian air bases.
on
we were just
Syrian
talking
air
about,
bases.
you
We
know,
were just talking about.
First of all, there's no evidence.
First of all, there's no
this decision
evidence.
was made
This
24
decision was
hours
made 24
after
hours
it had happened. With
after
no
it had
real
happened.
forensic
With no
analysis.
real forensic
And who actually
analysis.
did the chemical
Who
attack.
actually did the chemical attack.
There's no proof
that
Assad did it.
That Assad
it's probably more
did
likely
it.
that
It's probably more likely
ISIS
that
or the rebel forces did it. with Al-Qaeda and ISIS.
Al Qaeda and ISIS.
Is there any audio
Is there
feed?
any audio feed? Is there an audio feed?
Okay.
And
Simultaneously,
simultaneously,
Assad was winning the war with
Assad was
Russia,
winning the war with
fighting
Russia,
ISIS, pushing the Al-Qaeda forces and ISIS forces out of Syria and back into Iraq. It makes no sense for
him to all of a sudden then do a suicide attack on his own people and basically on himself and his own regime by unleashing a chemical attack which will bring international condemnation. How do you see this situation that is boiling down, and how do people in the Middle East see what is going on? Go ahead, Dr. Karam Alfred.
To me personally, and to most of the people here in the Middle East, they can see that this is unfair. They couldn't find any evidence that Assad regime or the Syrian army did this attack. And if you can follow the news around, you can see that there is no way that the Syrian army, while winning the war almost against ISIS, Daesh, and would do such a very crazy thing. So now we can see that this is a big mistake. We can see that it's a big mistake that the U.S. government or Trump could give such what you call an order to attack Syria. It doesn't help at all the fight against the enemy, which the enemy is ISIS, is the Islamic state.
Yes.
So here we can see clearly it is unbiased. It's a biased decision. We don't know why. We are wondering. Everybody is wondering why such just after 24 hours without any confirmation or any evidence or any studies to find out who is it. And most probably they will find out later on that this is the Islamic group or some third party putting the problem there.
Yes, I mean, Assad has no motive to do it. Assad was winning the war against ISIS. They were pushing them out of Syria, and they were stabilizing. They're going to be stabilizing their country. Now Assad has come out and say he will not leave his position of power because now it makes no sense for him to then do a suicide attack on his own regime and his own people while he's winning the war. It makes absolutely no sense. The motive is for Al-Qaeda and ISIS, who want to frame him because they're losing the war. That's the motive. That's clearly, I mean, people in the West are so brainwashed by the media and CNN that they have no idea what's going on. But people who understand what's really going on there, and you're on the ground, I mean, people in the Middle East must be able to clearly see that that this is not helping get rid of ISIS. This is helping ISIS. This is helping ISIS, not helping get rid of them. Is that true?
It is absolutely true. I always admired your views of the Middle East while you are far, far away, and I could see how clever you are and how precise. How I want to find the right word. How you finish it very well and you bring it exactly to the right by describing the Wahhabism, and this is a huge problem today. It looks like the most fanatic in the Jewish side. It's exactly the most fanatic in the Muslim side. They are ruining wonderful religion as Islam and ruining wonderful religion as Judaism, the media, and somebody is ruining the value of Islam and the value of Judaism. What's happening today is that 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I have been living in a most fearful situation as a Christian in Lebanon. We are the few Christians in the Middle East now left, and we were living a fearful situation. Today, we are much better, not only because we have been defended by Iran, by Hezbollah, by Russia, and by the goodwill people, Islam, the Muslims themselves who are living. For example, here I am living in a village, while on the other side, the first village I go through, village, another Muslim, another Muslim, another Christian. Sometimes in the same village, there's half Christian, half Muslim. So those Muslim people who were a little bit in the beginning, a little bit confused about fighting ISIS or Daesh because they didn't like Assad regime. Today, they can see it. They don't need anybody to explain to them who is fighting who and where is the problem. The problem is not in Assad regime. The problem is not in Iran. The problem is not in Russia. The problem is in those fanatic people who have been pushed by an unbelievable ideology and so satanic that they don't give any value to any human being, only to themselves.
Yes.
Well, you're in Lebanon right here, and we're looking at the map right here. Guys, pull up this map right here. Lebanon is right north of Israel and bordering Syria. So you are bordering Syria. You are saying that you could actually hear the attacks. You could hear things near Lebanon. Is that true?
We can hear the fight in the Palestinian camp, because in the Palestinian camp we have a 5 kilometers here from me. There's a Palestinian camp of 1 kilometer square. There are 100,000 people living in, and you can imagine how ISIS have been infiltrated inside. So a few days ago, the PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, start fighting against those Islamists. Finally, they want to clean. Yes, I can hear those fights, but I cannot hear the fight which is happening between in Syria, because I am like around 110 kilometers away from them.
Only 110 kilometers. Well, that's pretty close.
What, 50 miles, Tim? Is that about 50 miles away? 70 miles away? Now here we can see that Syria, of course, borders Lebanon, which of course Syria then borders Iraq. Such a volatile region right there. How is it in Lebanon? How is it in Lebanon? Is Lebanon under threat from ISIS? Do you have frequent attacks from ISIS? How is it on the ground there in Lebanon?
Well, I told you 5 years ago, 6 years ago, Lebanon was very fragile. We have, as you know, a weak army. Israel has invaded many times Lebanon, protection of the Palestinians. Then we have been invaded. We have still part of Lebanon invaded by Israel, by the Israeli army. The problem became less because the Lebanese army and the Lebanese resistance today have held hands and have secured completely the borders with Syria, because they have been sending car bombs, and they have killed hundreds of people inside Lebanon, mainly in the Shia area we call Dahya. It's because it's a suburb of Beirut where almost 1,000 Shia people have left the south many years away, and they have put themselves into that area we call Dahya. So those ISIS have sent many car bombs into this area, killing the Shia. And that is where the Lebanese resistance, named Hezbollah, and the Lebanese army have secured the borders since. And now we have a very, very secured country as inside the country of Lebanon.
So Lebanon has been under attack by ISIS. Everybody in the Middle East, of course, knows that ISIS is the main threat. Syrian rebel army, moderate rebel army, was then merged with Al Qaeda, ISIS. They're all Nusra. They're all working in the same factions that are now kind of merging together. Now Turkey and Erdogan has said that he essentially will support ISIS, and that he will support the expansion of ISIS. And he's come out as a real Saudi Wahhabi style totalitarian caliphate pushing leader. How is the Middle East view of Turkey and Erdogan moving towards ISIS, and now supporting them?
Well, this was extremely clear in the beginning. Saudi Arabia, Qatar, United Arab Emirates, and Turkey have been supporting. That's why ISIS could expand in an incredible way.
So
they could
quick,
take
yes.
almost the two-thirds of. They could take almost the two-thirds of Syria, almost half of Iraq, and that's how they could successful. But lately, it seems these Muslim the Muslim brothers which are in Turkey, they have a very ambiguous way of doing things. Now, in the beginning, they were explicit of encouraging and supporting and giving aid to ISIS. Today, they can do it as they did in the past. So that's why the Muslim people, the Muslim population, have been awakening to the threat of ISIS, but still in an area close like Saudi Arabia and Qatar, the population can do nothing because they have no freedom there. Now, since we have freedom, we are holding hand in hand, Muslims, Shia, Sunnis, Druze, Christians in Lebanon, and making this a very clear what we call opposition, and then spreading little by little the threat of ISIS, as you can see that today ISIS is getting weaker and weaker in Iraq and in Syria.
They were getting weaker, and then all of a sudden,
The U.S. government and President Trump decided to bomb Assad, which helps ISIS. This is this insanity. This was so insane. They released pictures of all these children, and there's probably children that have died in this attack, but they were saying that it's chemical attack, that it's sarin gas. But they were handling these people who were infected with sarin gas with little gloves and little masks. I mean, you can't handle sarin gas like that. You can even Google it on YouTube. I'm sorry, on Google, and you can see that sarin gas is one of the most toxic chemicals. You can't just, touch it with latex gloves. I mean, and then the media is CNN, and the Western media is pushing it, and all the warmongers like McCain and even Hillary Clinton is happy for this war, and Zakaria, Faraz Zakaria on CNN just praising Trump. All the people who are creating all the destabilization in the Middle East continue to implode the Middle East, take over, doing regime change, but then letting ISIS grow in power and letting them take over the countries that they're doing regime changes. They're the ones who are applauding Trump. They're saying, good job, Trump. Isn't that a bad sign when the warmongers and the people who continue to make failed states and continue to let ISIS power grow, they're the ones clapping for Trump? Isn't that a terrible sign?
It is an insane. We are perplexed. How could Trump do this, or permit to do this, or even accept to do this, while today is very clear Syria, Iran, Russia are the only one seriously, honestly, I can tell you, seriously fighting ISIS. Without them, Lebanon would have been taken away. You know why? Because here in Lebanon, we have 1.5 million Syrian refugees. 1.5 million Syrian refugees. We have 500 million Palestinians, and the population of Lebanon is 4 million. So we have 2 million refugees for a population of 4 million. So from this 1.5 million refugees of Syrian, don't you think there was so many ISIS in them? Thank God. The population became aware. We have a very strong resistance in Lebanon, trained. The army has done unbelievable, very wonderful job that Lebanon did not, because the weakest country here is in Lebanon, and did not fell into this trap of ISIS. So yes, the Syrian army is fighting ISIS, clearly fighting ISIS, and only ISIS, and terrorism, world terrorism, while We don't understand how come United States sends 59 missiles to hit Assad while he is fighting ISIS. We don't understand.
Oh, yes. Well, that's such an important breakdown. We'll be right back after this short break with Dr. Alfred Karam in Lebanon, the Middle East, breaking more of this down from his perspective. We'll be right back after this break. Stay with us.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
In the Middle East.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name. At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name. At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name. At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name. At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
And we are back. Welcome back to the King's Report. I'm your host, Hyungjae Sean Moon, the second king of Cheongguk, and we are here joined today with Dr. Alfred Karam, who is in Lebanon, helping us break down and understand the Middle East and the situations there. Now, Alfred, we were talking during the break about Lebanon being defended by Iran. Iran was actually helping Lebanon fight out ISIS. Is that true?
Absolutely true. Here too, everybody knows this.
Everybody
Knows this. Every Lebanese person knows if we have a peace in Lebanon, if we are still living as Christians or Muslims, Shia or Druze, thanks to Iran and thanks to what we call the militia of Shia, which working marvelous, unbelievable, clean, wonderful job, patriotism.
Now that's very different from in the West, where they show the images of the Iranian leaders saying "Death to America," "Death to the West." They always show the Iranians
as these radicals that want to destroy they want to nuke America. And they always show Saudi Arabia as these very holy, saintly, they're friends with the Bushes, friends with the Clintons, friends with Obama, friends with all the American presidents. They always show that dynamic. How do you feel as a Lebanese about how the media portrays those two powers?
Well, yes. As the king, Saudi king and family, they are very friendly to the United States of America. Yeah, absolutely. As a family, but not as a population. You have 20 million people living there. And same in Iran. The mullahs and those on the top, yes, they have a hatred for America, not 80 million Iranians. However, you have to differentiate between today. You can easily differentiate as living and with Sunnis and Shia, and mainly Wahhabi Sunnis. You know the understanding of Quran is completely different. We Christians, we Christians very much to share with the Shia. We had Jesus Christ had been crucified, and we had Hussein and Hassan been crucified too. I mean, killed. That's because of the heritage of Muhammad. The great person had to inherit Muhammad was Ali ibn Abi Talib, and it had been done at that time. And the good person, the able person, went away, and they brought the king. That's why today you can see the Sunnis are.
Trouble with the audio with Alfred. He's breaking up a lot. We can't hear him clearly.
However, to the question, in Iran, you have less people in the United States, and even there are 80 million. 20 times Iran, and the Iranian people.
Reconnect you back. Try to get rid of that breaking up pattern that's happening on his audio. We'll try to reconnect him back. Okay, we lost him there, but we'll try to reconnect him back. Okay, Alfred, are you back? Are you there? Alfred, are you there? Okay. Seems like we lost him there. But he was giving us some perspective from the Lebanese picture about the difference between Shia and Sunni, and especially Wahhabi-based Sunni, Saudi Arabian Sunni. The question was, the U.S. is constantly pandering to the Saudi Arabian Wahhabist, to the Saudi king and the Saudi regime that we know that oppresses, that has such an oppressive force over women, that has oppressive culture. It's a totalitarian regime. And also, of course, backs ISIS, supports ISIS, funds ISIS, works with the United States and the previous CIA presidents from the Bushes to Clinton to Obama, super close with the CIA presidents. And of course, he's explaining that also in Iran. Iran also, they have the mullahs and the radical people within that country as well, who hate America. My question was to him, do they hate America because America is helping their arch enemy, Saudi Arabia, and the Saudi Arabian Wahhabism and ISIS spreading, Al-Qaeda spreading, arming them, training them, weaponizing them to, of course, fight against and take over the entire the Arabian Peninsula. As you can see here in the map, Saudi Arabia is this huge chunk right here, big chunk right up here. Where am I? Right here. Right here. See my finger right here? There's Saudi Arabia. Right here. That's United Arab Emirates. And the Saudi Arabia right above that. And then you can see that huge chunk here by Saudi Arabia, a massive chunk. And then here you see Jordan. You see Saudi Arabia is bordering Iraq right here. It's bordering Kuwait. It's touching with Israel right here. And of course, Syria is right here. This is where our guest is from Lebanon, right here. And look here, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Iraq, and right there is Iran. Here we go, right here. And of course, Turkey right here, up here in north, being the gateway into Europe. And of course, the migrant flows from all these different states trying to run away from their totalitarian regimes, moving through Turkey and into Europe. And of course, Saudi Arabia is hand in hand with Turkey, with Wahhabism in Turkey and Erdogan over there. The point is that there are not all saints this whole region is very, very fractured, very, very unstable. And of course, there's many historical animosity, historical fighting. The Saudis and the Sunnis and the Shiites have a history of disagreement, history of warfare. Of course, many times it's not only religiously motivated. The political regimes that take over these countries, especially Saudi Arabia, use the religious aspect and the violent aspects of the Orthodox Islam and the Wahhabism to stimulate and to encourage those to become radicals, to engage in physical jihad against the infidels, against those unbelievers whom they see as unfit. And of course, the Saudi regime, the Wahhabist regime, uses that religious fervor combined with the centralized state, combined with their centralized archangelic totalitarian monarchy, to then essentially do conquest of all the different countries around them, fund radical terror groups all around the Middle East to implode these societies, and of course bring their power base and conquest base to expansion. Now, are we back with Alfred online? Alfred, are you there?
Okay, is he there?
Yes.
Can you hear
Yes.
us? Okay, good. He can hear us. Now, if you can you continue to break down the relationship between Saudi Arabia and Iran for our listeners and viewers? Go ahead, Alfred.
Yeah, the problem here is that there's a lot of hatred between Sunnis and Shia. So there is a point of Shia fearing Sunnis because Shia are 200 million and the Sunnis are above 1 billion. So it is clear that if Shia are afraid, well, they have been massacred since the beginning, and that's why they had to live in a very remote areas, and they managed to keep their faith. While Sunnis are a billion and even more, they want to completely annihilate. Can anybody imagine?
Oh, there. Okay, we were having a good feed with him, a good audio feed with him. Yes, we're losing you, Alfred. We're losing you again. You're coming back in again. Yes, you're coming back in. Go ahead. Okay, looks like we lost Alfred there. Again, having troubles with our audio feed out of the Middle East. But again, Alfred giving us on the ground analysis, on the ground perspective from as being a Middle Easterner himself, and seeing the actual situation there in Syria or in the Middle East. We're working now to get him back online to help us break this down a little more. Now we have to understand, of course, getting back to that comment. He was continuing helping us break down the great rift between the Sunnis and the Shia. The Shia being about 200 million, the Sunni being about 1 billion in terms of Muslim. And so he was saying that the Shia fear the Sunni because the Sunni are so much larger, and the Sunni, I don't know if he was saying this, but my take on it is that that's the Sunni, of course, the main power block is Saudi Arabia, because Saudi Arabia, of course, Saudi Arabia there is the center of Islam. Mecca, Medina, all the main shrines and pilgrimage sites are in Saudi Arabia. It is the center of Islam. And of course, because the U.S. has helped create the Saudi Arabian monopoly on gas and oil and force everybody to buy from them and aided their monopoly while deindustrialized other countries that can produce oil and are trying to compete with Saudi Arabia. We have a situation where the Saudi Arabian, the center of Sunni Islam, is so enriched and so powerful. And of course, because they're so powerful, they want to get back to the conquest orthodoxy, the conquest Wahhabism, and that is why they're involved in funding ISIS, funding Al-Qaeda, funding all these radical terrorist groups, so that they're able to destabilize countries and then make them bow and bend them into their political and religious doctrine. Now, here, Wikipedia, I have this Wikipedia here now. Wahhabism is an Islamic doctrine and religious movement founded by Muhammad ibn al-Wahhab. It's been variously described as ultra-conservative, austere, fundamentalist, or Puritan, as an Islamic reform movement to restore pure monotheistic worship by devotees, and as a deviant sectarian movement, vile sect, and distortion of Islam by its opponents. The term Wahhabism is often used polemically, and adherents commonly reject its use, preferred to be called Salafi or Muwahhid. The movement emphasized the principle of Tawhid, the uniqueness and unity of God. It claims its principal influences to be Ibn Hanbal and Taymiyyah, both belong to Hanbali school. Wahhabism is named after the 18th century preacher and activist Muhammad ibn al-Wahhab. He started a reform movement in the remotely sparsely populated region of Najd, advocating and purging of such widespread Sunni practices as the veneration of saints, the seeking of their intercession, and the visiting of tombs, all of which are practiced all over the Islamic world, but which he considered idolatry, shirk, impurities, and innovations in Islam. Eventually, he formed a pact with the local leader Muhammad bin Saud, there's a Saudi, offering political obedience and promising the protection and propagation of the Wahhabi movement, mean power and glory, and rule of lands and men. The alliance between followers of Wahhab and Saud successors, the House of Saud, proved to be a durable one. The House of Saud continued to maintain its political religious alliance with the Wahhabi sect through the waxing and waning of its own political fortunes over the next 150 years, through to its eventual proclamation of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in 1932, and then afterwards on into modern times. Of course, they don't mention that they massacred anybody who opposed them and violently took that country. Today, Ibn Abu Wahhab's teaching are the official state-sponsored form of Sunni Islam in Saudi Arabia, with the help of funding from Saudi petroleum exports. There they are. The movement underwent explosive growth between 1970s and now has worldwide influence, because they would behead you and kill you if you do not convert. The U.S. State Department has estimated that over the past 4 decades, Riyadh has invested more than $10 billion into charitable foundations in an attempt to replace mainstream Sunni Islam with the harsh intolerance of its Wahhabism. The boundaries of Wahhabism has been called difficult to pinpoint, etc. The majority of mainstream Sunni and Shia Muslim worldwide strongly disagree with the interpretation of Wahhabism. Yeah, of course, that's coming from Wikipedia. Unfortunately, the Wahhabi Saudi power block is so powerful that they're now influencing all the mainstream Sunni organizations in the United States. 80% of the mosques are owned by Saudi Arabia, which has as its official national doctrine Saudi radical Wahhabism. Do you understand that, folks? Do you understand it? That's how unbelievably powerful it's becoming and spreading over the entire world. We'll be right back after this short break. I'm believing Tim will be taking over from me, and we'll be continuing breaking this down with Alfred Karam from Lebanon and the Middle East. Don't go away. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
In your majesty, when we lie. Little hands, shoeless feet, lonely eyes looking back at me. Will we leave behind the innocent to grieve? On their own, on the run, when their lives have only begun. These could be our daughters and our sons. And just like a drum, I can hear their hearts beating. I know my God won't let them be defeated. Every child has a dream to belong and be loved. Boys become kings, girls will be queens, wrapped in your majesty. When we love the least of these, then they will be brave and free. Shout your name in victory. When we love the least of these. When we love the least of these. Break our hearts once again. Help us to remember when we were only children hoping for a friend. Won't you look around? These are the lives that the world has forgotten, waiting for doors of our hearts and our homes to open. Boys become kings, girls will be queens, wrapped in your majesty. When we love the least of these, then they will be brave and free. Shout your name in victory. When we love the least of these. When we love the least of these. If not us, who will be like Jesus to the least of these? If not us, tell me who will be like Jesus to the least of these. Boys become kings, girls will be queens, wrapped in your majesty. When we love. Little hands, shoeless feet, lonely eyes looking back at me. Will we leave behind the innocent to grieve? On their own, on the run, when their lives have only begun. These could be our daughters and our sons.
Welcome back to the King's Report for April 11th, Tuesday, the 8th year of Chungi, 3rd month, 15th day by the heavenly calendar. The king was called away on a pressing appointment, and he asked me to fill in for him during the remaining time here up until 8 o'clock. During this hour, we'll be going to Mrs. Kang for her Rima and her message. Her Rima this morning is Matthew chapter... Which chapter are we in here? We're in John chapter 5. We're in John chapter 5, verses 24 and 5. Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that heareth my word and believeth on him that sent me hath everlasting life, and shall not come into condemnation, but is passed from death unto life. Verily, verily, I say unto you, the hour is coming, and now is, when the dead shall hear the voice of the Son of God, and they that hear shall live. 강 기자님 말씀하십시오. 예.
안녕하십니까.
Good morning, everyone.
오늘 말씀의 내용은 가정적인 세계 가나안 복귀의 길이라는 내용으로 말씀드리겠습니다.
Today I'd like to speak to you about the restoration of worldwide restoration of Canaan on the family level.
오늘 우리는 가정적인 세계 가나안 복귀 시대를 맞이했습니다.
Today we are in that time in which the Canaan is being restored on the worldwide level, but at the family level.
그 노정에는 요단강이 가로놓여 있습니다.
And that restoration involves crossing the Jordan River.
그러므로 우리들의 가정을 요단강 저편 승리의 천국 고향 땅에 옮겨 놓아야 되겠습니다.
So we need to lead our families across the Jordan River so that we can have a victory on the other side.
그 책임이 우리에게 있습니다.
And that responsibility lies with us.
그 책임이 우리에게 있는데 옮겨놓지 못하면 천년 한 만년 한이 남아질 것입니다.
And because we are responsible, we need to realize that if we are not able to do this, if we are not able to move our families across the river into Canaan, then we will regret this for thousands, even tens of thousands of years.
모세는 요단강을 바라보며 죽었지요.
Moses was not able to cross the Jordan. He died before he could do that.
이스라엘 민족의 일세는 전부 광야에서 독수리 밥이 되었습니다.
All the members of the first generation of Israelites died in the wilderness.
그러분의 역사가 여러분 앞에 있었다는 것을 우리는 생각해야 합니다.
And we need to realize that this is the history that lies before us.
아버님은 그것을 알기 때문에 생명을 각오하고 그렇게 열심히 우리를 가르쳐 주었습니다.
And because Father realized this, he put his life on the line to teach us with everything he had.
아버님은 말씀하셨습니다. 나는 죽을래야 죽을 사이가 없고 쉴래야 쉴 사이가 없었다고 말씀하셨습니다.
Father would say that even if I wanted to die, I would have no time to die. Even if I wanted to rest, there would be no time for me to rest.
어떤 때는 몸이 아프면 뜻을 위해 일하다 죽게 되면 살아서 책임 못한 한을 남기지는 않을 것이니 정말로 그냥 이대로 내가 죽을 수 있겠는가 생각했던 때도 있습니다.
Sometimes when Father was ill, he would say that he could not afford to die because he could not leave this world and leave with the regret that he had not accomplished everything he needed to accomplish while he was in his physical body.
그러면 책임 못한 것을 천하에 가서 변명이라도 할 수 있지요. 뜻을 이루지 못하고 가게 되면은 변명할 길조차도 없는 것입니다.
We might think that we would have excuses when we go to the next world, but no. If we go there without accomplishing our responsibility, there will be no excuses.
그렇게 생각하시고 여러분은 자녀들 많이 두었는데 참 사랑스럽지요. 여러분은 내 아들, 딸 사랑하는 것보다 얼마만큼 뜻을 더 사랑했습니까? 했던 것입니다.
And Father would say, you have many children, but how much have you loved God's will more than your children? That is what you should be doing.
나는 과거의 뜻을 위하여 자식을 뒤에 남겨두고 집을 나선 적이 많이 있습니다.
He said that there were many times when he had to leave the home and leave his children behind so that he could do the work of God.
쌀 한 톨도 없고 돈 한 푼 남지 않았는데 하나님은 출발 명령을 내게 내리셨습니다.
Even though there was no money and no food, still, Father said that God gave him the ability to push forward.
하나님도 뜻을 놓고는 너무너무도 무정했어요.
God was very unmerciful when it came to matters of his will.
그런데 자식이 불쌍하다는 생각이 들면은 나아가기에 힘듭니다.
But if we think that, if we try to sympathize with our children, thinking that our children are deserving of sympathy, and if we try to focus on them, then we will not be able to focus on God's will, he said.
못 가는 것입니다. 아버님이 그런 길을 갔다면 여러분은 어떨 것입니까?
Where would we be today if Father had focused on his children more than he did on God's will?
그러면은 여러분은 축복받은 여러분들이니 갈 수 있는 자세라도 가져야 되지 않겠습니까?
But we have received this blessing from heaven, from God, from true Father. And so we need to at least try and show that we are trying to accomplish this will.
흉내라도 내야만 정말로 축복 가정으로서의 자격이 있다고 봅니다.
We at least have to pretend that we are trying if we are to be qualified as Central Blessed families.
축복받고도 이렇게 고생을 하고 있는데 생각하면은 참으로 난처할 때도 있었던 것입니다.
But unfortunately, there were many times in which we were not doing this.
그러나 나는 여러분들에게 세계를 대신해서 여러분들은 싸워야 되고 세계를 대해서 여러분들이 싸우게 되면은 많은 복도 받을 수 있는 길이 있는데 생각해야 할 문제입니다.
Father said that we need to fight for the world, for the sake of the world. And then when we do that, then we'll be able to receive much blessing.
세계를 위해 싸운 자에게는 여기에는 세계가 찾아와서 우리에게 축복해 주시는 것을 우리가 안다면은 세계를 위해 나가는 걸 우리는 멈추지 않고 고마워하는 마음, 감사하는 마음으로 우리는 실천할 수 있었을 것입니다.
If we're aware that if we fight for the world, then the world will come to us and give us blessing. If we know that, then we would not stop to fight for the world.
세계를 위한 복인에게 찾아오는 데는 어디에서 찾아올 수 있겠습니까? 비참하고 피 흘리는 십자가의 자리에서 찾을 수 있고 받는다는 것도 우리가 생각해 봐야 됩니다.
And where should we be if the world is to come to us? We need to understand that we need to be in the place of suffering and in the place of where we are in the crucifixion of Christ, the crucifixion of the cross.
어디에서 우리가 이 복을 인수하느냐 하면은 가정적 십자가의 정상 그 제일 꼭대기에서 받을 수 있는 것입니다.
We can inherit the blessing from the world when we are at the pinnacle of the cross of the family.
아버님도 내 아들, 딸들에게 잘해줘야 된다는 것을 내가 알고 있지만은 너무도 안팎의 사정이 급하기 때문에 아버님은 그것을 거절했던 것입니다.
Father said that he knew that he should work with his children more often, work more with his children, but he said that the situation was so desperate that he could not afford to do that.
그래서 아버님은 언제든지 앞장서서 정말로 사탄과 싸우는 데에 서슴지 않고 앞장서서 싸웠었던 것입니다.
And so Father always stood at the forefront and never hesitated to fight with Satan.
참 자녀 너희들에게 내가 참으로 미안하다고 생각할 때가 많았다고 말씀하셨습니다.
He said there were many times when he felt sorry to his children.
늘 아버님은 말씀하셨어요. 축복 가정을 앞에 두고 정말로 너희 가정들이 가정 천국을 이루었느냐? 천국 가정을 이루는 책임을 다했느냐고 물었던 것입니다.
He would often speak to blessed families and ask, have you accomplished heaven? Have you accomplished heaven in your families? Have you accomplished the heavenly family? Have you done that responsibility?
아버님이 우리에게 간곡하게 부탁하시고 말씀하셨던 그 음성이 그립습니다.
And I remember, and I miss the voice of Father speaking to us in this way.
저도 40일, 60일, 80일 나가서 순회를 하고 와서 보고를 드리면은 그 보고가 끝나는 그 자리에서 또 언제 나가려고 하느냐, 또 나가야지 하시면서 아버님께서 참 나도 매정한 사람이 되었구나 말씀하셨습니다.
I remember after I would go around witnessing on a witnessing trip, itinerary trip, 40 days, sometimes 60 days, sometimes 80 days, I would return to Father and report to him. And then as I was ending my report, he would say, okay, so when are you going to go out again? And he would say, I really have become this kind of a person, haven't I?
왜 아버님께서 내리몰면서 언제든지 나가야 되고 언제든지 싸워야 된다고 말씀하셨겠습니까?
Why do you think that Father was always telling us to fight, and always telling us to continue to work for heaven?
이것은 우리 축복 가정들이 정말로 내가 말씀한 그대로 가정 천국을 이루어놓고 살고 있는가? 이걸 언제든지 아버님은 바라시고 또 우리 순회 나가는 사람들에게는 그걸 살피고 오라고 언제든지 말씀하셨습니다.
Father was always desperate to accomplish the heaven's will, and he was always telling me to go out as an itinerary worker to see the progress that was being made, and to report back to him.
가정의 천국을 이룬 곳에는 누가 찾아오느냐 하면은 살아계신 하나님이 찾아오시니 하나님을 만나려면 가정에다 천국을 이루어놓고 살라고 부탁하셨던 것입니다.
He would tell the families that when heaven is accomplished in the family, then God will dwell in that family. So if you want to meet God, you must accomplish heaven in your family. And he always emphasized this.
이 아침 우리가 아버님께서 말씀하신 이 말씀을 믿으면은 믿은 대로 꼭 되는 것이니까 가정에 우리는 천국을 이루어놓고 살아야 되겠습니다.
And let's believe these words by Father this morning. But if we believe, it will be accomplished. The heaven will be accomplished in our family.
여러분 가정이 누가 보아도 저 가정은 정말로 천국을 이루어 놓고 살고 있어 하는 이 소식이 내 귀에 들려 오기를 나는 기다리고 있다고 말씀했습니다.
Father would say that can't wait for the day when I hear that one of your families has accomplished the heaven, that people will say that, oh, look at that family. They really are a heavenly family. I can't wait to hear that, he said.
수만 쌍을 축복시켜 놓고는 정말로 모두가 가정의 천국을 이루어 놓고 정말로 하나님이 바라시고 원하시는 대로 살아 주었으면 하는 것이 아버님의 소원이었고 아버님이 우리들에게 바라셨던 내용이었던 것입니다.
So it was Father's desire, his fervent desire, that we would live in this way, that we would live in heavenly families.
그래서 아버님은 말씀하시기를 나도 가정을 가지고 있지만은 우리 가정에는 가훈이 있는데 이 가훈이 정말로 손님이 찾아오거나 거지가 찾아온다 손치더라도 배고프지 않게 해서 내가 보내어 주는 것이 내가 할 책임이고 우리 가정의 가훈을 이루는 책임이라고 말씀했던 것입니다.
The Father said that in his family, that is to say in his physical family of his ancestors, there was a strong teaching, there was a philosophy that if someone came to the family, if a guest or even a beggar came, that he would not be sent away hungry, that they would always feed anyone who came to them.
그래서 정말로 그 아버지 되시는 그 할아버지도 역시 그런 마음을 가지고 있기 때문에 거지나 어떤 분이 찾아오더라도 그냥 내보내지 아니하고 정말로 있는 것 전체를 다 주는 반면에 그 다음에는 밥상을 차려서 대접을 했는데 만약에 늦으면은 당신이 잡수시던 밥상을 가지고 와서 거지들에게 주었다는 말씀을 하시면서 이렇게 가정에 정말로 천국을 이루어 놓고 모두가 지어주시었던 처음 세계의 사랑을 실천하는 그런 가정이 되어 달라고 부탁하셨던 것입니다.
The father would talk about how his father would sometimes, always actually, when a beggar or other guests came, would always feed that person. And if there was no food, then, or if would take some time to prepare new food for the guest, then his father would take his dish, his plates, and give it to the guest so that the guest could eat first. And he said this was the kind of heavenly atmosphere that existed in his family when he was young, and he asked that we also have a heavenly atmosphere in our families.
가정 천국을 이룬 곳에는 모든 존재가 모여듭니다.
When a family has that kind of heavenly atmosphere, all beings will be attracted to it.
하나님의 사랑이 깃드는 곳이 모든 존재의 평화스러운 안식처이기 때문에 이렇게 모든 존재는 하나님의 사랑이 있는 곳에 깃들게 되고 찾아오게 되는 것입니다.
Because when God's love exists, then all beings are attracted to that love.
이렇게 사는 집은 정말로 그 후손이 복을 받게 되는데 몇 대가 받느냐 하면은 3대에서 7대가 정말로 큰 복을 받을 수 있는 것입니다.
much blessing will be given to the family that lives like this. Not just one generation, but for generation after generation, 3 generations, 7 generations and onward.
오늘 우리들도 아버님 말씀 그대로 정말로 3대가 7대가 가정의 천국을 이루어놓고 살게 될 때는 복을 받게 되고 복만 받는 것이 아니라 복을 1000대 만대 후세에 나누어 줄 수 있는 귀한 가정이 된다는 것을 언제나 우리에게 설득해 주셨습니다.
He would often speak to us and talk to us about how this kind of a heavenly family, heavenly atmosphere needs to be established in every family so that God can dwell on this earth.
그래서 우리 축복 가정은 먼저 내 마음이 편안하고 내 마음의 천국을 이루어 놓아야만 먼 후일 우리가 갈 수 있는 곳이 천국에 입적할 수 있고 천국에 들어갈 수 있는 것입니다.
But we must accomplish peace in our own hearts, and we must accomplish love in our families, so that we can be registered into that kind of a heavenly atmosphere and that kind of heaven when we go to the spirit world.
이렇게 사는 가정에는 자손 만대에 정말로 무엇이라고 형언할 수 없는 천복이 여기에 찾아올 수 있게 되어 있습니다.
Certainly, tremendous heavenly fortune will come to the family that lives in this way.
그래 아버님은 말씀하시기를 이 문씨 가정의 법도가 무엇이냐 하면은 정말로 위하여 사는 가정인 동시에 더 나아가서 3대가 한 가정에 살아도 모두가 화하게 되고 모두가 정말로 기뻐하고 즐거워하면서 사는 가정이라는 것을 말씀해 주셨습니다.
And Father said that in the Moon clan, in the ancestry, the rule was that this kind of a heavenly atmosphere had to be maintained, that living for the sake of others, so that the heaven could reside in the family.
오늘 우리들의 가슴 속에도 아버님이 말씀하셨던 내용 정말로 가정의 천국을 이루어 놓고 부부가 하나 되어 즐기면서 기뻐하면서 노래하면서 살 수 있는 그 천국 파라다이스 이걸 우리는 우리 가정에서부터 이루어 놓고 사는 이 생을 우리가 하지 않으면 안 될 것입니다.
This morning, I'd like to ask every one of you to establish this kind of peaceful atmosphere, heavenly atmosphere between you and your spouse and between your parents and children, so that we can have paradise in every family.
아버님께서 제일 부러워하고 또 소망하는 것이 무엇이냐면은 축복 가정이 정말로 에덴 동산에서 타락하기 전 그 세계의 그 생활을 실천하고 사는 것을 보았으면 좋겠다는 말씀을 저는 여러 번 들었습니다.
I remember Father often saying that more than anything, he would like to see blessed central families living together as if they were Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden in an unfallen state.
그래서 아버님은 말씀하시기를 때가 가나안 복귀 시대라. 가나안이라는 것은 천국을 상징하는 것입니다. 그렇기 때문에 오늘 우리는 가나안을 바라만 볼 것이 아니라 내 안에 내 가정에 이루어놓고 사는 이 일을 우리들이 실천하지 않으면 안 될 것입니다.
Father would often say that this is the time to restore Canaan. Well, Canaan symbolizes heaven. And so let's not just look at Canaan from across the river, but actually establish Canaan within our hearts and within our families.
아버님이 최초 바라셨던 것이 정말로 가정적인 세계 가나안을 이루자는 것. 세계가 모두가 다 가정천국을 이뤄놓고 하나의 세계, 선의 세계, 사랑의 세계, 아버지의 나라, 천일국을 이뤄놓고 기뻐하고 즐거워하는 그 세계를 소망하셨는데 아주 그것이 요원하기 때문에 아버님은 영계에서도 탄식하고 계실 것입니다.
More than anything, Father wanted to see this Canaan restored in the families worldwide, so that worldwide they would be able to live with joy.
한날은 아버님께서 제게 무슨 말씀을 하셨는고 하면은 너는 오늘부터 순회를 나가는데 80일을 가 있다가 오라. 그러면서 하셨던 말씀이 무엇이냐 하면은 정말로 네 속에, 네 가슴 속에 천국이 이루어지고 있다면은 가는 곳곳마다 심판의 역사를 일으킬 수 있다고 말씀했습니다.
One day, Father said to Mrs. Kang, I want you to go out today. Go out as an itinerary worker and don't come back for 80 days. And if you really have this kind of a peace in your heart, if you have heaven in your heart, then amazing miracles will be accomplished through you.
심판의 역사는 무엇이냐 하면은 정말로 제가 전하는 말씀을 믿으면은 영생, 구원, 하늘편에 설 수 있지만은 믿지 않게 될 때는 모든 것이 파괴되고 모든 것이 다 지옥을 이루고 모든 것이 하나님과 원수되는 그 길을 갈 수밖에 없으니 가서 말씀해보라고 네 안에 얼마나 천국을 이루어 놓고 살고 있는가를 실험해보라고도 하셨습니다.
He said that through your words, he said through Mrs. Kang's words, that the spiritual work of judgment would be accomplished by God. That if she spoke to people and gave them God's word, and if they believed it, then they would be blessed, and if they did not, they would be cursed, and that they would have a terrible end. And he said, go and speak God's word, but that will be the spiritual work of judgment would only come about if you have heaven in your heart. So you can test to see how well you have accomplished heaven in your heart.
오늘 우리들의 가슴에 천국을 이루어 놓고 산다면은 정말로 어떤 역사가 벌어지느냐 하면은 가는 곳마다 승리의 천국, 본향 땅을 내가 가정에 이루어 놓고 이웃에 이루어 놓고 사회에 이루어 놓고 내가 바라는 것은 온 세계가 가정 천국을 이루어 놓고 정말로 하나님이 이루시고자 원하셨던 그 생활의 본체가 모두가 되었으면 좋겠다고 아버님은 말씀해 주셨던 것입니다.
And Father said we need to become the substantial body of that kind of a heavenly spirit and heavenly atmosphere so that God could use us as His vessels.
오늘 우리는 남별다른 길을 걷고 있는 것입니다. 이 별다른 길이라는 것이 정말로 하늘이 볼 때에 땅이 볼 때에 또 우리 식구들이 볼 때에 정말로 참 부러워하고 우리가 이루어 놓을 세계가 이 세계였는데 하고 영원할 수 있는 그 세계를 오늘 우리 앞에 내 마음에 내 가정에 이루어 놓는 이 열매를 맺어야 되겠습니다.
Today we are going a path that not many people go. And what we need to accomplish is that we need to accomplish a family and a society that others will see and feel envious of. And say that, oh, I wish I had that. I wish I had accomplished that. And that is what we need to accomplish on this course.
그래서 우리 센츄리 이 교회에 방문하시는 분들 또 오시는 분들은 무엇인지 모르게 여기에 와서 뜨거운 가슴에 하나님의 사랑, 참 아버님의 사랑, 왕님의 사랑을 느끼면서 세워놓고저 원했던 세계가 이 세계였는데 하고 부러워하면서 참 나도 실천에 타야 되겠다고 정말로 새로운 각오를 하고 갈 수 있는 이 역사를, 이 내용을 우리는 보여주어야 되겠습니다.
We need to accomplish the relationships in our family, the heavenly atmosphere in our family, so that everyone who comes to the Sanctuary Church, who visits the Sanctuary Church, will see this and see it as a model that they would like to follow, that they would be envious of. That is what we need to accomplish here in this church.
그렇게 될 때에 정말로 하나님이 기뻐하시고 또 영계에 계시는 아버님께서 즐거워하시고 뿐만 아니라 오늘 이 모든 책임을 지고 나서신 우리 왕님도, 2대 왕님도 이것을 보시고 즐거워하고 기뻐하시고 참 새로운 용기를 가지고 우리 모두가 다시 싸울 수 있는 그런 자리에 들어갈 수 있을 것입니다.
When we do that, then we can have the courage, we can have the energy in order to fight for the will of heaven and to accomplish that will throughout the world.
그래서 오늘 이 아침 여기에 오신 우리들은 정말로 새로운 각오와 결의를 가지고 정말로 왕님과 더불어 이 땅에 어떤 세계를 이루느냐 하면은 아버님이 바라시고 원하셨던 하늘, 또 더 나아가서 천국, 천일국의 참 주인으로 나타나기에, 천일국의 시민으로 나타나기에 부족함이 없는 참 책임을 다할 수 있는 오늘 우리들이 되어 나아가기를 다 같이 우리는 바라고 있습니다. 고맙습니다.
So let's become the owners of Cheonilguk. We can march forward and accomplish this kind of an ideal in ourselves, in our families, in our communities, and throughout the world. Thank you very much. All right, we'll be back after a short break.
다 끝났습니다.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today.
Who will be like Jesus to the least of these? If not us, tell me who will be like Jesus to the least of these. Boys become kings, to grieve. On their own, on the run, when their lives have only begun. These could be our daughters and our sons. And just like a drum, I can hear their hearts beating. I know my God won't let them be defeated. Every child has a dream to belong and be loved. Boys become kings, girls will be queens, wrapped in your majesty. When we love the least of these, then they will be brave and free. Shout your name in victory. When we love the least of these. When we love the least of these. Break our hearts once again. Help us to remember when we were only children hoping for a friend. Won't you look around? These are the lives that the world has forgotten, waiting for doors of our hearts and our homes to open.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Welcome back to the King's Report for April 11th, 2017, 8th year of Chungi, 3rd month, 15th day by the heavenly calendar. The king was here for the first 2 hours, but he was called away on a pressing appointment, and so I am standing in for him. My name is Timothy Elder. And we just had a message from Mrs. Khan. During this final segment, before the end of today's broadcast, I'd like to go through the headlines today. We see that Trump's son, Putin won't bully us. A split opens between Washington and London over Syria. Theresa May didn't support those strikes against Syria, and so there's a split opening there. That's another indication that maybe Trump needs to think carefully about what he's doing. Pope Francis leaves the church and supporting migrants. That's consistent with his view there of globalism. Attacks shows ISIS new plan, divide Egypt by killing Christians. A military plane unusually close to Air Force One moments before landing. Apparently when the president was in Air Force One, flying in Air Force One, there was a military transport plane that passed pretty near it. And the AP actually got a photograph of it. That's how close it was. Heart disease breakthrough as pump reverses damage. Mountain collapses in Malibu. New Venezuela clashes. Really, Venezuela is in a terrible situation. It's really showing the world what socialism leads to. Man wearing Hold My Beer t-shirt arrested for driving under the influence. Drudge likes those stories, always includes a few of them. Noonan, this must be Peggy Noonan, yes, wins a Pulitzer. Panama Papers Project wins prize. Peggy Noonan is a very good author. I read her quite often. Update, Trump tells aides to stop fighting, promote agenda. Good idea. Unusual naval patrol sparks fear of foreign sub off California coast. And update, United shitstorm after passenger dragged off plane. I read that story. Apparently there was a plane was overbooked. They asked for volunteers who wanted to stay behind. No one volunteered, and so they picked someone, and he basically left the plane more or less kicking and screaming. But he felt like he was taken hostage, he said. But airlines involuntarily bumped 40,000 passengers last year. Smartphone fingerprint sensor leaves gaping security hole. Man's body stranded for 2 days during Delta flight cancellations. Feds target fake stock news on top financial websites. Articles by authors paid to promote. Republicans get nervous over Kansas race. Congress sinks into partisan morass as shutdown threat looms. Tax cuts stall. A shutdown threat refers to something that is being predicted for August this year. You know, we've had government shutdowns in the past, right? So we know what that's about. And maybe in August this year, there's going to be another shutdown if Congress cannot agree on a continuing resolution to continue funding the government. Then at some point, the government will have to be shut down. Has to do with the debt ceiling as well. Busted, West Point cadet convicted of drug dealing. Executions in China outpace rest of the world combined. That's actually not new. That's been true for a while now, that China executes more people than the rest of the world combined, and even on a per capita basis. Stop loss, an option for Air Force to keep departing pilots. High school students face animal cruelty charges after mutilating mouse. I don't understand that. I mean, do they not cut up frogs anymore in high school? That used to be a standard part of biology. They don't do that anymore? They're dead already? They're frozen? I see. Glass bottom pool, 40 stories up, not for the faint of heart. Environmental concerns as 7,200 gallons of Mountain Dew spill. That pool looks like it'd be pretty exciting. New age of Ayn Rand, how she won over Silicon Valley. Rise of kidults, toys no longer just for children. Update, hacking group releases tools it claims are used by NSA. O'Reilly ratings rise and rise as advertisers flee. He's getting a series of, I think, sexual harassment complaints and suits, and the advertisers are refusing to advertise with him because of those suits. But then I guess those ratings are actually getting better. Oscar de la Hoya taunts Trump in ad promoting Cinco de Mayo bout. Shame, Obama governor resigns in sex case, pleads guilty to misdemeanors. He could not vote for Trump over lewd comments. Bloodbath at San Bernardino Elementary School, teacher killed, students critical. There in that elementary school, a estranged husband came into the school and shot his, I guess, former wife or anyway, estranged wife, and then an 8-year-old child was also killed. Actually, it says a student critical, but I think the update is that an 8-year-old child was actually killed in that melee. Let's go into this Peggy Noonan story, if I can get it. Peggy Noonan wins 2017 Pulitzer Prize for commentary. I'm sure many of you have been reading her commentaries. They've been in many places, and they're pretty good. Oh, I have to subscribe in order to read it. Well, anyway, congratulations to journal columnist, the Washington Journal, this is the Wall Street Journal columnist Peggy Noonan on winning the 2017 Pulitzer Prize for commentary. Ms. Noonan won for a variety of her columns during 2016, and particularly for her prescient pieces on Donald Trump and the political uprising his candidacy represented. Ahead of most others, she foresaw Trump's rise and his appeal to Americans who were frustrated by the leaders of both major political parties. Ms. Noonan didn't shrink from addressing Trump's many flaws as a candidate, but she always showed great respect for the intelligence of voters and explained the currents of American life. That's okay. Well, congratulations to Peggy Noonan, and we'll continue to read her. And let's go into this thing on the split between Washington and London, because right now that's also an important relationship. Split opens between Washington and London over Syria. This is The Sun. This is a British newspaper. After Theresa May refused to back new strikes on Assad, U.S. government has threatened to launch a fresh round of missile strikes on the regime if it uses nerve gas again. A serious split has opened up between Washington and London over Syria after Theresa May refused to back any new airstrikes on tyrant Bashar Assad. The U.S. government has threatened to launch a fresh round of missile. We already said that. Donald Trump's National Security Advisor, H.R. McMaster, and his ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley, have both warned the U.S. is prepared to do more to enforce an international red line on chemical weapons. But Downing Street refused to back President Trump's tough stand when repeatedly pressed today. The Prime Minister's official spokesman would only say the question was hypothetical, adding, "Our focus is on building international support for a political solution to end the conflict and bring lasting peace and stability to Syria." Number 10, that is number 10 Downing Street, that's the British Prime Minister's residence, also said Theresa May has no plans to go back to the House of Commons to ask for approval for the UK to stand alongside the US and join future strikes on Assad. A vote by MPs, that's members of parliament, in December 2015 only authorizes the RAF, that's the Royal Air Force, the British Air Force, UK Air Force, to join attacks on ISIS in Syria. Questions are also being asked by MPs why Theresa May has not spoken to Donald Trump about the security crisis yet. Almost a week has elapsed since it erupted when 100 civilians were killed when the town of Khan Sheikhoun was targeted with sarin gas Tuesday. Mrs. May did ring Canada's Justin Trudeau on Sunday night to work with him to build support for a political solution. Mr. Trudeau, who also runs a powerful G7 country, is seen as a foreign policy dove and could be a key ally in trying to restrain Donald Trump. Downing Street also said the two leaders agreed on their support for the initial U.S. cruise missile strikes on Friday, dubbing them an appropriate response. U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson reinforced America's new intention to act against war crimes yesterday. While commemorating a 1944 Nazi massacre in Italy ahead of a summit of G7 foreign ministers, Mr. Tillerson said, "We rededicate ourselves to holding to account any and all who commit crimes against the innocents anywhere in the world." Former Tory PM David Cameron failed to persuade the Commons to allow cruise missile strikes on Assad to punish an earlier chemical weapons strike that killed 1,000 civilians in 2013. So that's the situation in Britain. That's an interesting aspect of this story that hasn't been covered really yet. We're talking a lot about the Russian response and even the North Korean response and the Chinese response, but it looks like Theresa May is trying to act as a kind of a calming influence. And so she's calling the Canadian Prime Minister Trudeau and trying to build a coalition within the G7 to work more towards a political solution rather than to have further strikes against Syria. But at the same time, she and Trudeau agreed that the initial strike by Donald Trump was an appropriate response. So that's the British take on this. Let's look at what Pope Francis is saying. Actually, I'm not so interested in that story after all. Let's go down to the Egypt story. Attacks show ISIS' new plan, divide Egypt by killing Christians. This is a New York Times story. Cairo, grief and rage flowed through Egypt's Christian community on Monday as tear-streaked mourners buried the victims of the coordinated Palm Sunday church bombings that killed 45 people in two cities. This was last Sunday, day before yesterday. The cabinet declared that a state of emergency was in effect. A newspaper was pulled off newsstands after it criticized the government. It was just the reaction the Islamic State wanted. Routed from the stronghold on the coast of Libya, besieged in Iraq, and wilting under intense pressure in Syria, the militant extremist group urgently needs to find a new battleground where it can start to proclaim victory again. The devastating suicide attacks on Sunday in the heart of the Middle East's largest Christian community suggested it has found a solution: the cities of mainland Egypt. Since December, the Islamic State, also known as ISIS, has signaled its intent to wage a sectarian war in Egypt by slaughtering Christians in their homes, businesses, and places of worship. Several factors lie behind the vicious campaign, experts say. A desire to weaken Egypt's authoritarian leader, Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, a need to gain a foothold in Egypt beyond the remote Sinai deserts where jihadists have been battling the army for years, and a desire to foment a vicious sectarian conflict that would tear at Egypt's delicate social fabric and destabilize the state. There's a significant propaganda factor to this, said Mokhtar Awad, a military expert at George Washington University. ISIS wants to show that it can attack one of the Arab world's most populous countries, Arab world's most populous countries, few believe it can succeed. The sheer demographics of Egypt mitigate any Iraq-type success in which the Islamic State fed off deep tensions between Sunnis and Shiites. Christians make up just 10% of Egypt's people, who are mostly Sunni Muslims, and despite deep-rooted prejudices, there is no popular support for a bloody pogrom. Yet for now, unless the Egyptian government can bridge its wide security gaps, Egypt's Christians seem likely to bear the brunt of the Islamic State's ambitions, and the fight could have broader consequences for civil liberties and political freedoms in a country where both are already in short supply. A line of wooden coffins borne by Boy Scouts and marked with the word martyr filed through the doors of an ancient monastery on the outskirts of Alexandria on Monday. A mournful drumbeat accompanied the procession. The coffins held the remains of some of the 17 people killed on Sunday in a blast at the gates of the St. Mark's Cathedral, the historic seat of Christendom in Egypt. It was perhaps the most ambitious of the two attacks because the Coptic patriarch Tawadros II had been inside the church at the time. The scene also stepped up pressure on Mr. Sisi, who counts Christian leaders among his staunchest allies. His response to the imposition of a 3-month state of emergency was met with a national shrug. Egyptians have lived under a state of emergency for 44 of the past 50 years, and Mr. Sisi already has vast powers that have led to the imprisonment of his rivals, mass trials, and unfettered surveillance of enemies. The state of emergency, due to be approved by the rubber-stamped parliament on Tuesday, will probably entrench his autocratic tendencies. Under the emergency law, suspected terrorists will be channeled through special courts with a low evidence threshold and no appeal process, and which operate entirely under Mr. Sisi's control. Additionally, the president will have the power to censor newspapers and intercept electronic communication, a provision that his supporters have suggested could be used to crack down on critics on social media, one of the last arenas of relatively unrestricted speech in Egypt. You have to remember, though, that the opposition in Egypt is the Muslim Brotherhood right now, a terrorist organization. And President Obama was supporting the Muslim Brotherhood and refused to invite President Sisi to Washington. President Trump already invited Sisi to Washington, and actually they had a meeting. When was that? I think it was last week, wasn't it? About a week ago in Washington, and showing that he was going to support al-Sisi. Now, yes, al-Sisi is putting in new rules and constitutional powers, which will increase his power, and as I say, to surveil his people and to perhaps also institute censorship. This is the kind of thing, though, that is sometimes necessary in these countries when they are threatened by groups like the Muslim Brotherhood or other terrorist groups. So I think it's probably a good idea for President Trump to continue to support al-Sisi, and so that al-Sisi can prevent this kind of a situation where ISIS is able to gain a foothold in Egypt and expand their war into Egypt. Today we're facing a very difficult situation in the world today, where the ISIS in the Middle East and in North Korea in East Asia are causing major problems for the United States and for the entire world. Already there's been a strike in Syria that partially damaged one of Syria's airfields, but we hope that there are no further strikes against Syria. Certainly we don't want World War III to begin. 100 years ago this month, the United States entered World War I. And that actually began 3 years earlier in 1914. But the way that began was not because someone got up one morning and say, okay, let's have a worldwide war. It began, as an assassination, and then one country declared war on the country where that assassination took place, and then its allies and their allies, and before you knew it, it was a war that was being fought in every area of the globe. So these things don't happen intentionally. No one wants the kind of killing where millions and millions of people tens of millions of people are killed. But when you start going in that direction, that can happen. World War II is a similar situation. Hitler, when he invaded Poland, thought that Britain would not intervene. He didn't start out to cause that kind of a war that would bring about his own collapse and the destruction of his country. But it was a miscalculation. And so also today we are faced with a situation where grave miscalculations are very possible. North Korea probably thinks that the United States will back down. The United States thinks that North Korea will back down. But it's a game of chicken. And in a game of chicken, sometimes and oftentimes, people die. We don't want that kind of war. We want peace in this world so that God's kingdom can be brought about. Well, let's pray that His will can be done. So we ask you to pray, and may Godspeed and God bless, and may thy kingdom come. Thank you. We'll see you tomorrow, Wednesday, on the King's Report at 5 a.m.